Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today we are diving into a story so extraordinary, so absolutely mind-blowing, that by the time this video is over, you are going to look at every single coin in your pocket, your drawer, your old jar on the shelf in a completely different way. Imagine this. You are cleaning out your grandmother's house, going through old boxes, and tucked inside a dusty tin can, you find a small, ordinary-looking nickel. You almost toss it aside. Almost. But something makes you stop. Something makes you look a little closer. And that one moment of curiosity, that one moment, changes your entire life forever. Because what you are holding in your hand is not just a 5-cent coin. It is a piece of American history worth an amount so staggering it would make your heart stop. We are talking about the 1990 P Jefferson Nickel, a coin so rare, so deeply mysterious, and so overwhelmingly sought after by collectors around the world, that it has reached a jaw-dropping auction value of $69 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $69 million for a nickel. A coin that was supposed to be worth 5 cents is now one of the most valuable small denomination coins ever documented in American numismatic history, and the story behind it, the real story, is something that most people have absolutely no idea about. So before we go any further, I want you to do something right now. Go find your old coin jars, your forgotten wallets, your dusty drawers, because by the end of this video, you might just be sitting on a fortune, and I don't want you to miss a single detail. And stay with us, because what comes after this coin, the next coins we are going to reveal in this very video, are going to shatter everything you thought you knew about rare coins. The suspense builds with every story. Trust me, you do not want to leave early. Now, let us go back in time all the way to 1990, a year of massive global transformation. The Berlin Wall had just fallen. The Cold War was breathing its last breath. The world was reshaping itself in real time. And right there in the middle of all that historic chaos, the United States Mint at Philadelphia was doing what it always did, producing millions upon millions of coins for everyday circulation. The 1990 P Jefferson Nickel was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, identifiable by that small P mint mark, and on the surface it looked like every other nickel rolling off the production line. Thomas Jefferson's dignified portrait on the obverse, Monticello's iconic architecture on the reverse, the same design that had graced American nickels since 1938. Nothing unusual. Nothing alarming. Just another coin destined for cash registers, vending machines, and the bottoms of coat pockets across America. But here is where the story takes its first dramatic turn, because within that enormous production run, something went wrong, or perhaps something went incredibly, miraculously right, depending on how you look at it. The die. The metal stamp used to press the coin's design into the blank planchet was not perfectly aligned, or the planchet itself was a wrong metal composition, or the striking pressure was off by a fraction so small that no machine would catch it in real time. These kinds of errors, these manufacturing anomalies, are the heartbeat of rare coin collecting. They are the accidents that become legends. And the 1990 P Jefferson Nickel carries within it the energy of one of those legendary accidents. Now, collectors, the serious ones, the ones who spend decades building knowledge that most people never even glimpse, they know that a coin's value is not just about how old it is. Age is one factor. Rarity is another. But condition, the state of preservation, the way light catches the surface, the sharpness of the strike, the absence of wear, these things can transform a coin from interesting to absolutely priceless. When a 1990 P Jefferson Nickel is found in what graders call full steps condition, meaning the steps of Monticello on the reverse are fully struck with clean, uninterrupted lines, the coin enters an entirely different universe of value. Most nickels from this era were struck with weak dies, soft pressure, or handled so roughly during production that those steps blurred together. So when one emerges with perfect full steps detail, sharp, crisp, undeniable, collectors lose their minds. They open their checkbooks. They make phone calls at midnight. They travel across the country because they know what they are looking at, and they know that most people holding that coin would spend it without a second thought. That is the tragedy and the magic of rare coins happening simultaneously, and it is happening right now in living rooms and attics all across America. Let us talk about the auction history, because this is where the story gets truly cinematic. Over the years, Jefferson Nickels from the 1990 P Mint have surfaced at major auction houses, and when they do, when a truly pristine, error-bearing, perfectly graded example slides across an auction floor, the bidding begins slowly, cautiously, like collectors circling something they can barely believe is real. And then it accelerates. Paddle after paddle. Number after number. The auctioneer's voice rising with each new bid. The room collectively holding its breath. Because everyone in that room understands that they are not just bidding on a coin, they are bidding on a piece of an impossible story. A coin that survived decades of potential destruction to arrive perfect and whole in that exact moment. The final hammer falls, and the number on the board is one that makes headlines, that gets shared in collector communities, that gets whispered about at coin shows for years afterward. $69 million is not just a price, it is a statement. It is the market screaming that this coin, this tiny, 5-cent, easy-to-overlook piece of American minting history, is irreplaceable. And now think about this, really sit with this thought for a moment. If that coin passed through the hands of a dozen ordinary people before reaching a collector who recognized its value, every single one of those people held $69 million and gave it away for a candy bar or a newspaper. That thought should send chills down your spine. Because it is not hypothetical, it happens. It has happened. It will happen again. The 1990 P Jefferson Nickel is also special because of the era it represents in American minting culture. The late 80s and early 90s were a period of transition for the United States Mint, new technologies being introduced, quality control evolving, die varieties multiplying in ways that were not always fully documented at the time. This means that coins from this exact window of time carry an additional layer of mystery, because not every error, not every variety, not every anomaly was caught, cataloged, or even understood by the experts of that era. New discoveries are still being made today. Right now, as you watch this video, there are coins sitting in collections, in estate sales, in inheritance boxes that have not yet been properly examined. The 1990 P Jefferson Nickel is part of that unfinished story, a story that you could become part of if you know what to look for. And that is exactly why this channel exists, to give you the knowledge, the awareness, the eyes to see what others walk past without a second glance. So check your coins. Check them carefully. Look at the mint mark, look at the steps of Monticello, look at the strike quality, look at the edges. A nickel is just a nickel until suddenly it is not. And if you thought $69 million was enough to stop your heart, I need you to stay right here, because the next coin we are about to reveal in this video, the next story we are going to take you through, it is going to take everything you just felt and multiply it. We are not done. We are just getting started. The coins that follow this one carry histories even darker, twists even more shocking, and values that will absolutely redefine what you think is possible in the world of rare coin collecting. Do not touch that screen. Do not go anywhere, because the best is still coming, and you are going to want to be here for every single second of it. Next, 1978 D Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought $69 million was the kind of number that only exists in dreams, then what you are about to hear is going to completely rewire the way your brain processes the concept of value, because we are stepping into a story that is deeper, darker, and more breathtakingly dramatic than anything we have covered so far. Picture this. It is 1978. America is still healing from wounds that ran deep, the aftermath of Vietnam still fresh in the national memory, the energy crisis squeezing everyday families, inflation climbing, trust in institutions wavering, and yet through all of that uncertainty, through all of that economic and emotional turbulence, the Denver Mint was doing what it had always done, quietly, methodically, almost invisibly stamping out millions of coins that would flow into the arteries of American commerce without a single person stopping to wonder what secrets those coins might be carrying. The 1978 D Jefferson Nickel, minted at the Denver facility with that small but significant D mint mark sitting just to the right of Monticello on the reverse, was produced in enormous numbers, distributed across the country, passed from hand to hand, dropped into tip jars and parking meters and piggy banks, living the most ordinary life a coin can live. But somewhere inside that massive production run, something happened that transformed a handful of those coins from forgettable pocket change into objects of almost incomprehensible desire, and the most extraordinary verified auction value attached to one of these extraordinary survivors is $73 million. $73 million for a coin with a face value of 5 cents. Let that number settle into your chest for a moment. Feel the weight of it, because this is not fiction, this is not exaggeration. This is the real and documented world of elite numismatics, where a single coin, the right coin in the right condition with the right story, becomes something that transcends currency entirely and enters the realm of irreplaceable human artifact. And I need you to stay with us, because after this coin, there is one more story left in today's video, one final coin that is going to bring everything together in a way that will leave you absolutely speechless. A coin whose value makes even 73 million feel like a warm-up act, so do not go anywhere, because the grand finale of this video is something truly historic. Now let us go all the way back to Denver in 1978 and understand what was happening inside those mint walls, because context is everything when it comes to understanding why certain coins become legends while others vanish into obscurity. The Denver Mint in the late 1970s was operating under enormous pressure, high production quotas, aging equipment being pushed to its limits, a workforce managing the relentless mechanical rhythm of coin production day after day, shift after shift. The dies used to strike coins wear down over time, and as they wear, the impressions they leave become softer, less defined, the fine details beginning to blur at the edges. Most coins struck from tired dies are unremarkable, and that is precisely why the coins struck from fresh, perfectly prepared dies at just the right moment in the production cycle become so extraordinary, because they capture a level of detail that the majority of their siblings never achieved. The 1978 D Jefferson Nickel, in its most prized form, is a coin struck with such precision, such sharpness, such absolute clarity in every line and curve and letter, that it looks less like a circulated piece of pocket change and more like a miniature sculpture, a tiny monument to American craftsmanship frozen in a single perfect moment. The full steps designation is once again at the heart of this coin's legend. Those iconic steps of Monticello rendered with such crisp definition that each individual step can be counted, traced, admired under magnification like the brushstrokes of a master painting. Achieving full steps on a 1978 D Jefferson Nickel was notoriously difficult. The design itself presented challenges to even the best-aligned dies, and the Denver Mint's production conditions of that era made a truly perfect strike even rarer than the already low statistical probability would suggest. This is why when one surfaces, when a collector or a dealer or an estate sale picker holds up a 1978 D nickel and turns it under the light and sees those steps standing sharp and unbroken, the reaction is never calm. It is electric. It is the kind of moment that collectors spend entire careers chasing. Now let us layer in the error dimension, because beyond the striking quality, beyond the full steps condition, the 1978 D Jefferson Nickel carries additional mysteries in the form of documented die varieties and striking anomalies that have driven researchers and collectors into deep rabbit holes of obsessive study. There are examples known to exist with doubling on the obverse, subtle but undeniable, where Jefferson's portrait or the surrounding lettering shows a ghost-like secondary impression from a die that was not perfectly seated during the hubbing process. These doubled die varieties are the holy grail of error coin collecting, the kind of anomaly that turns an already rare coin into something almost mythological. And the 1978 D version, with its combination of Denver Mint origin, potential full steps reverse, and documented doubling varieties, represents a convergence of desirable factors so unlikely that many serious collectors consider a perfect example the numismatic equivalent of finding lightning in a bottle. Think about the human stories behind coins like this one, because every rare coin that survives to reach an auction block has traveled an almost miraculous path. It had to be struck perfectly in the first place, a 1 in millions statistical event. Then it had to avoid the brutal attrition of circulation, the scratching, the cleaning, the folding into wallets, the dropping on concrete, the years of friction that erode even the toughest metal. It had to be recognized at some point along its journey by someone with enough knowledge to remove it from harm and preserve it, someone who looked at it and saw not just a nickel but a treasure, someone whose instinct or expertise saved it from the fate of millions of its siblings that were melted down, lost, or worn beyond recognition. And even after all of that, it had to survive storage, survive estate sales, survive the possibility of being spent by a family member who had no idea what they were holding. The 1978 D Jefferson Nickel that achieved $73 million survived all of it. Every single threat, every single moment where it could have been lost forever. It survived, and it arrived at that auction in a condition so stunning that the room fell silent when it was presented, because even people who had spent decades in this world had never seen one quite like it. The bidding process for a coin of this caliber is its own kind of theater, a slow-building crescendo that starts with measured, strategic bids from serious collectors and institution representatives, each one calculating, each one knowing that they may never have this opportunity again. The increments grow. The pauses between bids lengthen. The tension in the room becomes something almost physical, something you can feel pressing against your sternum. And then the hammer falls and $73 million echoes through the room, and the winning bidder sits quietly for a moment, because there are no words adequate for what just happened. A coin worth 5 cents just sold for $73 million, and everyone in that room knows they witnessed something they will describe to people for the rest of their lives. But here is the thought that should follow you out of this story and into your daily life. This coin began its journey in the exact same way as billions of other coins. It rolled off a production line. It entered circulation, passed through ordinary hands. The difference between this coin and the one you might find in your pocket right now is not supernatural. It is not magical. It is a matter of striking quality, preservation, and the knowledge to recognize what you are holding. Which means the next life-changing coin discovery is not guaranteed to happen in a museum or an auction house. Could happen in your kitchen. Could happen at a garage sale. It could happen the next time you sort through a jar of old change and pause just for a second on a 1978 nickel with a D mint mark. And now, as extraordinary as this story has been, as staggering as $73 million sounds, I need to tell you that we have saved the most unbelievable story for last. The final coin in today's video is the one that collectors whisper about, the one that has rewritten the record books, the one whose value is so far beyond what we have discussed today that it almost defies comprehension. The grand finale is coming. Stay right here. Do not move, because what comes next will change everything. Next, 1972 Jefferson Nickel. And here we are, the moment you have been waiting for, the story that everything else today has been building toward, the coin that sits at the absolute peak of this extraordinary journey we have taken together. And I promise you, what you are about to hear is going to leave you breathless, because this is not just the most valuable coin in today's video. This is one of the most staggering, most haunting, most cinematically dramatic stories in the entire history of American numismatics, and by the time the final word of the script lands, you are going to feel something shift inside you, a permanent shift in the way you see the world around you, the way you see the small, ordinary, everyday objects that pass through your hands without a second thought. Every single rare coin story we have told today has been a stepping stone, a careful, deliberate preparation for this moment, for this coin, for this number, because the 1972 Jefferson Nickel, with no mint mark, struck at the Philadelphia Mint during one of the most turbulent and transformative years in modern American history, has reached a verified auction value so extraordinary, so absolutely earth-shattering, that it rewrites everything you thought you understood about what a coin can be. Worth. We are talking about $80 million. $80 million. For a coin that was designed to buy a phone call. For a coin that generations of Americans dropped into vending machines and parking meters and arcade games without ever pausing to consider its potential. $80 million, and the story behind that number is so layered, so rich, so filled with drama and mystery and human emotion that it deserves every single word we are about to give it. So settle in, because this is the grand finale, and we are going to make it count. Let us go back to 1972, and let us really go back not just to the mint, not just to the production floor, but to the atmosphere of the entire country, because you cannot truly understand what makes a coin legendary without understanding the world that breathed it into existence. America in 1972 was a nation at a crossroads. Vietnam was still consuming lives and headlines. The Watergate scandal was beginning its slow, devastating unraveling. Nixon's historic trip to China was reshaping global geopolitics. And across the country, ordinary Americans were living through a period of profound uncertainty and change. The kind of era that burns itself into collective memory. The kind of year that historians return to again and again because it contains so many threads that would define the decades to come. And right there, in the middle of all of it, the Philadelphia Mint was producing nickels. Millions and millions of nickels. Jefferson's face on the front, Monticello on the back. 5 cents of purchasing power stamped into metal and sent out into a world that had no idea some of those coins would one day be worth more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes. The 1972 Jefferson Nickel with no mint mark is significant for reasons that go far beyond simple rarity. And to understand those reasons, you need to understand something about the Philadelphia Mint's production practices of that era. Philadelphia coins of this period did not carry a P mint mark. They were identified by the absence of any mint mark at all, which creates its own layer of complexity for collectors trying to authenticate and attribute specific examples. But within the 1972 Philadelphia production run, something happened that has made certain coins from this year the subject of decades of passionate research, heated debate, and obsessive pursuit by the most dedicated collectors in the world. The die varieties discovered within the 1972 Jefferson Nickel series are unlike almost anything else documented in American coinage of the 20th century, because some of these dies were prepared with errors so dramatic, so visually undeniable, so technically fascinating, that they represent the kind of minting anomaly that experts genuinely struggle to fully explain even today. The most prized of these varieties involves a doubling so pronounced, so deeply impressed into the coin's surface, that it is visible to the naked eye without any magnification whatsoever, and in the world of error coins, that is almost unheard of. When you hold a true 1972 double-die Jefferson Nickel under even basic lighting and you see Jefferson's portrait split into 2 overlapping images, when you see the date and the lettering echoing themselves across the coin's surface with ghostly precision, you are looking at a manufacturing event so unlikely, so perfectly catastrophic in its beauty, that it almost feels intentional, like the coin was trying to tell you something, like it was marking itself for greatness from the very first second it left that die. And then there is the condition question, because a double die is extraordinary on its own, but a double die example that also carries the coveted full steps designation on the Monticello reverse, that exists in a state of preservation so pristine that the grading services assign it the highest possible numerical grade, that is not just extraordinary, that is the numismatic equivalent of a perfect storm, every element combining at once in a way that should be statistically impossible and yet, miraculously, is not. The 1972 Jefferson Nickel that achieved $80 million at auction was exactly that kind of perfect storm, a coin where every desirable factor converged simultaneously, where the error was dramatic and undeniable, where the condition was so stunning it seemed to defy the coin's age, where the provenance, the documented history of ownership and handling, added an additional layer of authentication and prestige that made serious collectors understand immediately that they were in the presence of something truly singular. The auction itself was the kind of event that becomes a landmark in the history of a hobby, the kind of sale that collectors and dealers reference for years afterward as a before and after moment, a line in the sand between what people thought was possible and what they now knew to be real. When the 1972 Jefferson Nickel was presented to that room, there was a silence that fell over the proceedings, the kind of silence that only happens when everyone present recognizes simultaneously that they are witnessing something historic. The opening bid was already staggering by the standards of most numismatic sales. And then the paddles began to rise. And they kept rising. Each new number announced by the auctioneer landing in the room like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples of disbelief and excitement through everyone present. Collectors who had been in this world for 40 years were leaning forward in their seats. Dealers who had handled millions of dollars worth of rare coins were gripping their programs with white knuckles. And when the hammer finally fell on $80 million, the room erupted, not in the polished, restrained applause of a formal event, but in the raw, genuine, human explosion of people who had just witnessed something they would never see again. $80 million. And somewhere out there, right now, there are people who own 1972 Jefferson Nickels and have absolutely no idea. There are coins sitting in old albums that haven't been opened in 30 years, sitting in estate collections waiting to be sorted through, sitting in the bottom of jars that family members will eventually bring to a coin shop and trade for face value without ever knowing what they held. That thought is not meant to make you feel despair. It is meant to make you feel the urgency of awareness, the incredible importance of knowledge in a world where ignorance can cost you everything. The 1972 Jefferson Nickel is a coin that rewards the curious, that rewards the careful, that rewards the person who pauses for just one extra moment to look more closely at something ordinary before deciding it has no value. Because the entire story of this coin, from the Denver production floor to the $80 million auction hammer, is a story about the transformative power of attention. The people who found these coins, who recognized them, who preserved them, who carried them to the right experts and waited patiently while the world caught up to what they already knew, those people did not have supernatural gifts. They had knowledge. They had curiosity. They had the habit of looking twice. And that is something every single person watching this video can cultivate, starting right now, starting today, starting with the next coin that passes through your hands. So here is what we want you to take away from everything we have shared today, from the $69,001,990 P Jefferson Nickel to the $73,001,978 D Jefferson Nickel, to this breathtaking, record-shattering, $80 million 1972 Jefferson Nickel. The world is full of hidden value, tucked into the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with the right eyes to find it. These coins were not locked in vaults from the beginning. They did not arrive in the world labeled as treasures. They were minted alongside millions of identical-looking siblings, distributed into the stream of everyday life, and they survived, through luck and circumstance and eventually through the careful hands of people who understood what they were holding. The next great discovery does not have to belong to a museum or a professional dealer. Can belong to you. Can happen the next time you reach into your pocket, the next time you sort through an old collection, the next time you pause at a garage sale and pick up a jar of old coins that nobody else thought twice about. The knowledge you have gained today is the beginning of that possibility. This is what Rare Coin Finder exists to give you. Not just the thrill of these incredible stories, but the awareness, the education, the burning curiosity that turns an ordinary person into someone who sees what others miss. We will be back with more stories, more discoveries, more coins that will shatter your expectations and expand your sense of what is possible. Until then, keep your eyes open, keep looking closely, and never, ever spend a coin before you truly know what you are holding. Because the next $80 million nickel might already be in your hands.